1988's Strike of the Panther is the long-awaited sequel to 1988's Day of the Panther, and by long-awaited I mean they were both filmed at the same time and released pretty much at the same time as well. But after how good Day of the Panther was, you better damn well believe it was a long-awaited to me. Hell, I enjoyed Day of the Panther so much I actually bit the bullet and pulled the trigger on Umbrella Entertainment's lovely looking out-of-print double-feature Blu-ray for lack of better judgment on my wallet's part. I figured, hey, these movies were shot at the same time with largely the same cast and crew with similar budgets in the same locations. If I thought the first one was one of the best movies I'd seen for the first time in 2022, this thing surely couldn't be a bust. It's set up too good to fail. And, well, I wasn't strictly wrong, but Strike of the Panther is a little less stable a watch than its predecessor. The film picks up almost immediately after the events of Day of the Panther, recapping the first film in overt detail for pretty much the first 10 minutes of the opening, with linking narration to help bring it all together. It's not long before we're reintroduced to Jason Blade lookalike winner 1988 and 1989, Jason One Punch Blade, and almost immediately we're set up for this film. It's explained that Damien Zucker and his Big McLarge huge henchman Baxter were rounded up by the cops at the end of the last film and sentenced to life in prison for their involvement in an international murder and drugs cartel and illegal fixed underground fight club. Jason has been all but released by the cops, who now actively want to work with him to help make the streets of Perth a safer place to be. So, they give Jason a crack team of cops and get him to train them in the ways of the Panther in order to effectively create an unofficial order in Perth, with the aim of them being utilised only in special circumstances or advanced missions. Jason's delighted at the opportunity. It's long, hard work, but very rewarding. He's also better establishing a social life in his new stomping grounds, growing an even stronger bond with William and blossoming his relationship with Gemma, who's now also part of his new established Panther movement. Jason's never had it so good, but already some cracks are beginning to show. The sheer amount of work it's taking to train the new guys is starting to wear him down a bit, and the time away is impacting his relationship with Gemma. That in and of itself has problems of its own, as she wants Jason to commit more to her and for the pair to live together, something Jason isn't so keen on doing, as he quite likes the turn up for sex and cuddles then fuck off way of living. On top of that, Jason also has concerns about Gemma being in the Panther Order due to the risks involved. It's putting a bit of a strain on the relationship, but they're just about hanging on. Jason runs a few side missions in the film's opening that don't directly tie into the main film, including a job involving rescuing a heroin-addicted daughter of a judge from a brothel and getting to know Lucy, a psychoanalyst and latest member of the Force. All seems to be busy, but fine. That is, until Baxter breaks out of the pokey and steals a car. His exact intentions are unclear, but he's been seen to plant a ton of explosives at an abandoned power plant and seems to have extra muscle on hand for whatever he's working on. The next day, when Jason and Gemma hit the gym for an early workout, the pair are attacked by some goons hanging outside the front of the gym, who knock Jason out, kidnap Gemma and smack into William, who was at the gym training himself, cracking his ribs and leaving him for not quite dead. With William out of action, Jason goes to the Force and is paired up with Lucy and the squad in trying to find out exactly what's going on. It doesn't take long for them to figure out that this is Baxter's doing, and a short time later the whole gang are down by the power station getting the full brief. Baxter wants Jason conscious or otherwise at the power plant by 6 PM for some reason, or he's going to blow the plant up, killing Gemma and himself in the process and causing an environmental disaster. The team managed to convince Baxter that Jason is unconscious after the attack from the goons, but that doesn't seem to matter to him, leaving Lucy to negotiate and the squad to surround and secure the plant. Jason gets word that the goons who attacked him are holding up in a nearby trailer park, and so, with a couple of men in tow, they head out and go to try and arrest them. They manage to catch one in his trailer, but the other was out at the time. He sees the hubbub and makes a run for it. There's a pretty cool extended chase scene which ends in the guy's untimely demise, but with one of them in custody they have something they can work with. They also get word from Lucy that she's managed to delay Jason's handover from 6 PM to 8 AM the next day, giving them a few more hours to figure out what's going on. And what is going on isn't entirely clear. The captive goon basically reveals that he doesn't really know what Baxter's up to, but when bribed he does mention that Baxter's been planning this for quite some time and that it's way more involved than just a few explosives. He has the place filled with trained hockey mask wearing super ninjas and more martial arts weaponry than you can shake a nunchuck at, and it becomes quite clear that whatever he has in mind, getting revenge on Jason is clearly a key part of it. And so we enter our final act, as Jason prepares for a final showdown in the Tower of Power and Lucy and the squad prepare for a rear-entry siege. Will Jason manage to save the day? Will Baxter get his vengeance? And skeleton hockey mask blowtorch ninja? Skeleton hockey mask blowtorch ninja. Hey! Skeleton hockey mask blowtorch ninja! All this and more will be answered if you check out Strike of the Panther. And rather unfortunately for this film, the sentence "it's almost as good as Day of the Panther, but" is going to hang over this thing's head like a damn storm cloud. The problem is, this film's great. It's fun, a bit daft, it keeps a good pace and hits a lot of the right notes, but it's not Day of the Panther good. It's close, but it's not quite there. I have my own theory as to why, mind, though do bear in mind this is just a theory, so big pinch of salt here. I think that they didn't originally plan to make two Panther movies back to back. I think they budgeted for one movie, Day, and then when it actually came to shooting the thing, they found they'd actually over-allocated funding and had a bit more money to play with than they first estimated. Not enough to make two equal quality films, but enough that they could afford to pay for one or two additional locations for a couple of days apiece, and for the cast and crew to stay on for maybe a few days longer to complete a second project with what could be thrown together. I have a few possible pieces of evidence to back that up, the first being that the script itself for Strike is a lot more rudimentary than Day. Day the Panther had multiple locations, temples, gyms, multiple houses and offices, hotels, amphitheatres, boats, luxurious expensive multi-storey condos. Strike has a few scenes and locations from the first film, the gym, the cops' headquarters, William's house, Jason's apartment, and two new locations in the form of a brothel house, which may actually be the same place as Zucker's house, just shot from a different angle, and the power plant, and that's it. The plot's also markedly downscaled. We've gone from a multi-threaded narrative on international drug smuggling to an ultra-basic base under siege story. There's almost none of the flair of the first film, it's all had to be trimmed back to basics. In the first film, the henchmen all got deluxe latex masks of skeletons and animals to wear. In this film, the baddies had to split a six-pack of hockey masks that had been customised with school paint. And the big, grand, multi-thread final fight from the first film in an exotic location is here replaced with a one-on-one in a warehouse that ends abruptly. Let me put it this way. In the first film, at the end of the first act, Jason goes to Zucker's boat showroom and kicks 12 people's arses while repeatedly asking Zucker for a job. That wasn't even the proper, actual middle act fight of the film, it was just there for shits and giggles. In this film, a lesser sequence to that is the big final fight of the movie. We've not so much downscaled, more down plummeted. And with this impacting pretty much all aspects of the production across the board, it's hard to envision that they totally planned for these two films to be this way all along right from the off. And it becomes increasingly likely to me that partway through filming the first one they realised they could shoot a second movie, and then scrambled to see what they could put together. This is pretty strongly evidenced in the script, which, as mentioned earlier, is a massive downscale on the first film. I won't knock it for downscaling, you can still make a phenomenal movie with just a couple of locations and a dedicated cast and crew, but the script here feels really quite thrown together. The brothel rescue sequence is probably the highlight of this film and manages to capture that bizarre and wonderful energy that Day had, but the rest of the film is super basic in the story it wants to tell. It isn't really that well thought out and has quite a bit of padding between the moments of actual plot development, alongside quite a few casting and plotting issues to boot. Probably the biggest gripe I have with this one is Baxter being promoted into a lead villain role. Baxter was a fantastic heavy henchman in Day. He was pretty silent throughout, but had a nice menacing presence, and even though it was clear he didn't run the show, he knew how to command an atmosphere. I firmly believe this sequel was written with the idea that Zucker was the one who broke out of prison, but that the actor who played him either couldn't return or didn't want to return to the role. So the guy who played Baxter got a promotion and they basically just changed the name in the script from Zucker to Baxter. The problem is, Zucker and Baxter were very different characters, and making the strong, silent, smashy type have charismatic, pointed dialogue when he, and this is absolutely no offence to James Richards here, sounds like he's trying to invite you over for drinks and a cookout with every single line delivery, is just so tonally out of place and ill-fitting. It really is a miscast here to give Baxter the lead villain role. He's an excellent henchman, but a terrible main villain. A lot of the humour and general weirdness has also been lost here along the way. Sequences of Blade beating his way through 20 guys without even creasing his suit have instead been replaced with weird romance montages and endless exposition dumps that don't really ultimately add anything to the main plot. This thing has a tremendously strong first act, but around the time the initial stakeout of the power plant happens, right up until about 10 minutes off the end, it feels like the film's stalling for time by any means necessary. There are some good moments dotted throughout, like the urban chase sequence, Jason having a final workout in the gym, or the interrogation scenes, but they're few and far between and lack any kind of polish. Honestly, this could have been 45 minutes long and been a much more concentrated, tighter package that matched the energy and pace of the first film. As it stands, it's still entertaining, I still had fun with it, but it's a lot more bloated than the other film, and a couple more redrafts might have made all the difference. We've already covered the chaps who helped write and direct this film before when we covered Day of the Panther, God bless Brian Trenchard Smith. Surprisingly, there isn't a whole lot of trivia about this movie to hand, which, if anything, adds more fuel to my this was filmed in a rush with some of the unspent budget theory. So, in the absence of anything interesting about this film, I'll just leave you with a fun fact that Perth is officially the sunniest capital in Australia, with over 8 hours of solid sunshine a day. On the direction front, it's fine. They've decided to go for a cooler, more moodier looking piece with the sequel, and I think Brian has done the absolute best he can with coordinating the cast and crew in creating a film that feels very much tied to the first in terms of stylistics and tone, but is its own agent enough that it can strike out a little where it needs to in order to better define itself. It's kind of undeniable though again that this is a much more stripped back experience over Day, with cast members still bringing a level of animation to the table, but the opportunity for that animation is heavily reduced. As we swap out Jason Blade twatting someone every 45 seconds, with Lucy negotiating with Baxter, Gemma just sort of hanging around while tied up, or Jason angrily wandering around locations looking for answers. It made me appreciate the action or goofier moments more when they did crop up. But even that's got issues because there are less multi-man fights here, and even though we have an increase in the use of weaponry over straight melee fights, not a lot of interesting choreography was utilised here over the original. It all feels very loose, and only causing more issues, they're relying more on edits and the occasional masked framing here in the combat sequences than they did with Day. Day had a fair bit of soft touch combat and used the Cine more as a way to help add weight to the sequences. It may have been a tap, but Brian made sure that it felt like a punch. Here, because things are a bit more basic in terms of the choreography and they don't really utilise soft touch as much, it makes the sequences feel a bit sluggish and, well, dull. We're not quite at man taps another man for 15 minutes until man falls down, but we're heading in that direction, and that is a shame. The Cine is probably the film's saving grace here really. They utilise a lot of cooler colour palettes, with blues and washed out whites getting a decent utilisation here that helps keep things nice and stylish. I really appreciated the lighting, especially in the third act when they really lent into chiaroscuro to help create a moodier, darker setting, which really helps pull the audience in. There is a bit of experimentation, but not as much as previously seen, which has a knock-on effect in the edit where sequences feel a bit slower paced and flatter in profile. I need to stress that what is shown here still mops the floor with a lot of action movies from this time period, and I still think what's shown here is easily good to great, but it's just missing that bit more attention to detail that could have taken it from great to exemplary. Performance-wise, barring what I've said already about James Richards' evolved performance as Baxter, I think he's a very good actor, but I think this was a miscast. The rest of the team are pretty much business as usual. with Edward John Staszak still being Jason Blade in the most Jason Blade way imaginable, and this is one of the real benefits to them shooting the films more or less back to back, as it means our core cast of Staszak, John Stanton as William and Paris Jefferson as Gemma all retain the qualities, tones, abilities and styles that made me love them in the original movie. Joining the team for this outing though is Rowena Wallace, who plays Sergeant Lucy Andrews, and I'll say she's a welcome addition. With William taking a back seat in this film, presumably because it would have been seen to be unbelievable to make William a retired martial arts master, a Zen master with telepathic abilities, and a top psychoanalyst, bomb disposal expert and well-connected member of the police, I think Lucy is a perfect fit for this kind of film, and Rowena really brings a no-nonsense sense of fun to this. She's basically the Brigadier to Jason Blade's Third Doctor, and I thought she was quite marvellous. And finally, the soundtrack. Again, not much to say. Most of the score from this film was recycled from the first film. I like the score from the first film. I'm happy with more of the same, though I do kind of wish they'd given this film its own theme tune, as they just recycled the opening and end title credits from the first film but changed the titling, which was a bit of a swizz. Striker the Panther was released on VHS in 1988 by Guild Home Video as a big box rental tape. The UK release had just over 90 seconds of footage cut from it. Basically, there was a scene with nunchucks, yada yada yada, the BBFC are weird. It never got a US home video release from what I can see, but it did make its way to DVD in 2002 under ILC Prime. And when the extra features on the back of the box list a 6-chapter scene selection and nothing else, you know you're in for a party. It hasn't been released in the UK since, but it did get a very nice Blu-ray release via Umbrella Entertainment in 2019 in Australia. It's easily the best both of these movies have looked, and despite the total lack of extras and my comments during my review of Day of the Panther that at £30 this was way too steep for me to grab brand new, I actually managed after a few months of scouring eBay to nab a second-hand copy for £16 on a buy it now, which I did with the force of a wrecking ball, and I have no regrets. As of 2023, Vinegar Syndrome have partnered up with Umbrella Entertainment to re-release the film in the States. It's basically the same as the now out-of-print older Blu-ray, but I think it has nicer artwork, so yeah, get it while it's going. All in all, Striker the Panther does have a lot going for it. The script is broadly speaking enjoyable, it's not terribly paced, it's entertaining and largely tonally in line with the original. The direction and cine are both above average in terms of quality, the cast are all on the ball and trying their absolute best, and the soundtrack's solid. It's just a shame that the film this is being compared to is Day of the Panther, arguably one of my favourite action movies of the past 5 years. And because of that, it underperforms in almost every regard and ultimately comes across as feeling rushed, of very little money and unfocused. I think had they given this one just a bit more time, cash and attention, it probably could have easily lived up to the expectations set by the first one. But when you're working to a tight deadline and it's a case of the movie gets made or no movie, sometimes you have to compromise a bit to get what you need over the line. There was a third Panther movie film bandied about shortly after production was wrapped on these two under the name of Escape of the Panther, but it never made it out of pre-production, which is a real shame. This film may have been a bit mixed, but I liked it, and I'd have loved to have seen more. And hell, Strike ends in a perfect way to turn this duology into a long-distance trilogy a la Samurai Cop 2. While it's violently unlikely, I could easily see an aged Jason Blade beating the shit out of 20 henchmen in a boat showroom one last time. And I sincerely hope we do get to see Escape of the Panther at some point.